Pranam, Jai Janendra. Let's start with the prayers as usual. Namo Orientanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Vatsayanam, Namo Loe Sappasahunam, Eso Panchanamukkaro Sappapavapanasano, Mangalanancha Sabvesim Padmam Havai Mangalam. Namo Orientanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Vatsayanam, Namo Loe Sappasahunam, Eso Panchanamukkaro Sappapavapanasano, Mangalanancha Sabvesim Padmam Havai Mangalam. Namo Orientanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Vatsayanam, Namo Loe Sappasahunam, Eso Panchanamukkaro Sappapavapanasano, Mangalanancha Sabvesim Padmam Havai Mangalam. Veera Sarasura Surendra Mahito Virambhuda Sansrita Virena Bhiyata Swakarma Nichayo Veeraya Nityam Nama Veera Tirthamidam Pravtamatilam Veera Shaghoram Tapo Veere Sri Dhruti Kirtikanti Nichaya Sri Veerabhadram Disal Kamthe Dranendra Cha Sochitam Karma Kurati Prabhusthalya Manovrutti Parshanath Sri Estuvaha Anguthe Amrit Vasel Aptitana Bandar Sri Guru Gautam Samariye Manavachita Pradadatar. Welcome everybody to this Tuesday class, and as you all know, we are currently on the topic of the 10 Shravaks, famous Shravaks of Bhagwan Mahavir's sung, Uvasagada Sao, means the 10 Upasaks. We so far looked at the story of 6 of them, and today we are going to talk about Sadal Putra. This particular story is quite long, and we will not finish it this week, and we will start off with the second part of it after the break. Just to tell you, this particular story involves another character who you may have heard of, who promoted or proposed and propagated a different faith during the time of Bhagwan Mahavir. And this story involves his particular sort of Darshanic standpoint, his philosophy, and what we will try and do is understand that philosophy in a bit greater detail next time, because I need to read around the that particular topic. There is a mention of his particular viewpoint, which was contrary to what Jain Dharma teaches us, and he had started a completely separate darshan. And we will listen to a bit of his story and who he was, something that is familiar to me and probably familiar to many of you, but his particular complex explanation of reality is something that will require a bit more preparation on my part and a bit more patience on our part together to try and understand this. I will mention in certain terms that I used in this text that I'm referring to today, but we will explore that further from other texts when we meet again. Let me share the slides, and there is just one other thing that I just want to address today. It's a follow-up on the question that was raised by Shalina in yesterday's class. Am I correct, Shalina? Did you raise the question yesterday in the Uttaradan Sutra class?
Yeah, was
At the end. Okay. So I just wanted to give some clarity on that. And we will come back to that at the end of the class. And I think that will be useful for other people as well. So let me just share my slides. So Uvasag Dasao, as we have learned, the text that I'm referring to is a pretty short text, which is a very, very brief summary of a particular text called Uvasag Dasao, which is has got quite a lot of material, but even that is a great summary, or very significant summary, meaning everything has been shortened to quite a lot. The original text, according to this book that I'm referring to, was extremely long, and I think I discussed, if I remember correctly, it mentioned about 100,000 slokas in that, and what has been left is a very short part of it, and this particular book is a very short summary from that we have available with us, and Guru Bhagwan has Pandit has actually extracted this to bring to our attention this very short summary. At the beginning of this topic, we talked about the vows of a Shravak, that is a Jain householder. We talked about the 12 vows, the 5 Anuvrats, the 3 Gun Vrats, and the 4 Siksha Vrats, Vrat meaning vows, that Vrati Shravak or Shravika, that means a Jain householder, man or woman, may take when they are following the exact path that Bhagwan Mahavir has prescribed for us living in the household. For most of us, it is not possible, but you would still be described as Shravaks because we believe and follow some aspects of Shravak Dharma. Sadal Putra. He was a potter called, his name was Sadal Putra, and he lived in Polaspur, was a city-state ruled by a king called Jitsatru, and he lived there with his wife Agnimitra. Sadal Putra was a very wealthy potter who had an industry housed in 500 premises. The beginning of the story, that is how I interpret what is written here, but subsequently, uh, when he's talking to Bhagwan Mahavir, he mentions that these 500 premises are actually his shops. So from that description, one would presume that this city was probably huge if it had uh, 500 shops belonging to just one merchant, or he had 500 premises where he manufactured and sold all kinds of items made from clay. Then an industry that big would, and probably selling to the residents of that city state and probably others in the surrounding area, would actually be a huge industry in those times. So he was a very wealthy porter, and it's mentioned here that he employed a lot of people. I'm not familiar with a lot of the descriptions or the words that are used, but if any one of you are familiar with those words, please let me know. But these are sort of specialist uh, specialists in that particular aspect of making things out of clay who are described. So they're called, he said, the text says that he was employing a lot of people who were paid a salary, and says there was a huge number of karako. Karako, I presume, are people who manufactured. Varako, I presume, is somebody who decorated or sort of ensured that the goods were proper. Pihado. Pihado, I'm not sure what that means. The other word that is used is called gratto, adhyagatto. Now, I presume Asankhya, Karako, Varako, Pihadu, these are the people who were employed. So there are different skill mix in this particular industry. And the next words, Grato, Adhgato, Kadasho, Alinjero, Jambulo, and Utiao બનાવે છે. Those are probably different things that were being manufactured. Grotto and Adhgato, I presume, are kinds of pots. Kadasho is also a kind of pot or a container. Alinjero, Jambulo. I'm not sure what those mean. If any one of you have heard of that, let me know. And Utiao. Utiao is another word that is being used. બનાવે છે તથા બીજા પગારદારો તેમના રાજમાર્ગોમાં વેચે છે. And other people, the people who were the retail sellers who used to go out with these goods out on the streets or in the shops and sell them to people. Sadalputra himself is described as Ajiviko Pasak, meaning somebody who earned his living through industry. I presume Ajivika, it's described as somebody who is not primarily a porter, I think. It is somebody who is uh, a skilled artisan or a skilled trade, a skilled worker in a particular industry. So he's described as Ajivikopasak. And it's described that Sadalputra was a follower of Mankhliputra Goshalak. let me just stop here for a minute. How many of you remember Goshalak from our classes on Bhagwan Mahavir's 27 lives and his life? We talk about Goshalak sometimes during Kalpasutra Vanchan as well, but anybody remembers Goshalak?
Are they like the shelters for cows?
No. Goshalak is the name that was given to him, and yes, that refers to some aspects of his origin, but both words, Mankli Putra, is also referring to that he was a son of Putra, at least son of, and Goshalak is describing the place he was born in, the place that he was born. So, but do you remember his association with Bhagwan Mahavir? Anybody?
Did he actually put the Tejolesha on Mahavir Bhagwan
Yes.
and tried to hurt him?
Yes.
So, hurt Mahavir Bhagwan.
Yeah. So do you remember any other parts of his association with Bhagwan Mahavir?
He did penance and all that, and he attained the all the labdhi, but then he misused it.
Okay. So you remember that particular part of Goshalak's story. Let me quickly recite his the history as I remember it of his association with Bhagwan Mahavir.
Did he have rivalry with Bhagwan Mahavir?
Yes, he did.
He did.
Towards the end. Okay. So let me, anybody else remember anything else about Goshalak?
He wanted to learn from Mahavir Bhagwan the skills of Tejolesha. And he learned that from Mahavir Bhagwan, and he used it against him to show that he is, he's stronger than Mahavir Bhagwan, and in terms of he is the Bhagwan and not Mahavir Bhagwan, to show other people. And that's why he used it against Mahavir Bhagwan.
Yeah. So Mankli Putra Goshalak, his association with Bhagwan Mahavir started early after Bhagwan Mahavir took Diksha. So you all remember the important aspect of his story that is quite famous, but his origin and his association with Bhagwan Mahavir from the earlier days is something that I will recite as based on what I remember. Mankli Putra Goshalak, his Mankli Putra meaning the son of a painter. So his father was a painter. Goshalak, he was given that name because he was born in a cow shed where cows used to live. At some stage, soon after Bhagwan Mahavir took Diksha, Goshalak comes across him and recognizes the greatness of this person who is walking. Bhagwan Mahavir has not yet attained Keval Gnan. He's had taken Diksha and he's going from place to place, Vihar Kartada. And Goshalak sees him, recognizes his greatness from different signs, and thinks that if I want to be something in my life, then this is the person that I should follow and learn from. So he just begins to follow Bhagwan Mahavir. Bhagwan Mahavir, as we all remember, in those 12 and a half years after he took Diksha, said very little until he achieved Keval Gnan. He was silent. He didn't preach to anybody. And he, like all Tirthankars, would not have any disciples before they become Tirthankar, meaning before they achieved Keval Gnan and established a Sangh. But Mangliputra decided that he would be his Sishya or his disciple, and he carried on following him. And whenever people came across Bhagwan Mahavir, they would find Goshalak with him, and Goshalak of his own accord, without any prompting from Bhagwan Mahavir, because Bhagwan Mahavir was completely detached, he establishes himself as the spokesperson for Bhagwan Mahavir. And this carries on for some time. Goshalak has learned some aspects of the predictive sciences, meaning the sciences of Jyotish and Nimit Shastra, and he uses some of that to establish a kind of credentials for his greatness, and he keeps on following Bhagwan Mahavir. At some stage, he comes across somebody who has I'm not absolutely sure, but when we meet again next time, I will confirm that aspect of it. But some other sadhak who has perfected the particular power of Tejolesha uses it against him because he's been naughty. And Mangliputra Goshalak was quite a lot of trouble, and he was very mischievous, but he was also very opportunistic, and just used his association with Bhagwan Mahavir to just further his particular goals of becoming famous. And he comes across this person who, I think he is annoyed. I'm not absolutely sure of that part of it, so I've not sort of referred to it recently. But I will inform you about with more details next time. But Bhagwan Mahavir basically saves him from the effects of this particular Tejolesha by using his own powers to protect Goshalak. And then Goshalak thinks that this is a great power to have, and he keeps on asking Bhagwan Mahavir as to how to develop that power. So Tejolesha is a power which allows that person to basically discard or throw a beam of heat wave. I mean, those of you who have read comics about Superman, his power of heat wave, meaning that he can throw infrared rays which can heat up anything very quickly. So something similar to that. Tejolesha is with the person's will, he can burn things further away with the use of that power. So Tej means Tejolesha, Lesha meaning power. So kind of a laser beam that would heat up and burn something. So he keeps on asking Bhagwan Mahavir how to develop that power. And Bhagwan Mahavir, at some stage, tells him as to what kind of tap he needs to do to develop that power. And Goshalak, with all his faults, was still a diligent student, and he listens to that path, to the vidhi of that particular power, and follows that and does that tap and ultimately acquires that. He then later on in his life establishes a path which has a slightly different viewpoint, and he calls himself a very powerful person, and later on at some stage he announces that he actually is a Tirthankar and that Bhagwan Mahavir is an impostor. And towards the end, what you all have just quoted, once he, in his pride and in his anger and in trying to establish his credentials, he comes across to a Samvasran where Bhagwan Mahavir is giving Deshna. And this was long after Bhagwan Mahavir had achieved Kevadnan and was established as the Tirthankar. Goshalak comes to one of the Samvatsarans where Bhagwan Mahavir is giving Deshna, and in a very abusive tone and language, he is very rude to Bhagwan Mahavir and threatens him and tries to say all kinds of bad things about Bhagwan Mahavir. Bhagwan Mahavir obviously knows what is happening. Some of his Sishyas cannot tolerate, some other Muni Bhagwans cannot tolerate this insulting behavior from a challenger like a Goshalak, and they say, why are you saying this kinds of things? You are no match for, and then we wouldn't even allow you to even debate or talk with Bhagwan Mahavir because we are sufficient. You don't even need anybody with Kevadnan like Bhagwan Mahavir. We are sufficient. Bhagwan Mahavir tries to stop this Sishyas, but one of them goes ahead and challenges Goshalak. And Goshalak, and most of you have probably seen this picture, throws his Tejolesha onto this Muni Bhagwant, who is trying to fight against him, defending Bhagwan Mahavir, and burns him. And this Muni Bhagwant actually burns and dies there. And I think it was a second Sishya that he's trying to burn that Bhagwan Mahavir then protects by throwing Sitlesha to protect, meaning he throws a wave that will neutralize the effect of this Tejolesha. So Sitlesha meaning something which is cold, which will obstruct this power of this heat wave and saves that other person. But then Goshalak has now lost all his sense and he throws Tejolesha towards Bhagwan Mahavir. Tejolesha shouldn't or wouldn't affect Bhagwan Mahavir. It goes around him, and you've probably all seen that picture of sort of a fire in a circle moving around Bhagwan Mahavir, and it comes back and enters Goshalak's body and burns him from inside. Because he's the one who had thrown it, he doesn't burn immediately, but that Tejolesha has an effect on all his body and burns his inside. And Goshalak then leaves the Samvasran and goes back. However, Bhagwan Mahavir, and this was one of the other 10 unusual events that have occurred in this particular Chuvisi or in this particular time cycle. One of the events was this, that Bhagwan Mahavir suffered an upsarg like this after he had achieved Kevalgnan, and it didn't leave him completely unaffected. It actually, the effect of the Tejolesha caused him suffering. And the other part of that story is that because Bhagwan Mahavir was suffering, and a lot of the Sishyas noticed that he was actually suffering, and I think there is a discussion, if I remember correctly, that he was actually, as a result of this Tejolesha, was vomiting blood. People noticed that, and they kept on telling him to tell them what solution there would be and what medicines to use to cure him. And then Bhagwan Mahavir, he himself was totally oblivious of any pain or suffering, and did not initiate any kind of treatment for himself. But because his Sishyas were all troubled in seeing him like this, he directs them to a particular Shravika who had made a special oil for that would be effective as a medicine for this kind of a problem. And he tells his Sishyas, because they are insisting, that he tells them what is the solution for this illness, that there is this Shravika who has manufactured this, but she's got 2 bottles of that particular oil at home. You can get 1 bottle from her, but she should not give you the one that she has specifically made for me. She must give you the one that she has kept for herself. So obviously, something that is specifically made for Bhagwan Mahavir is teaching them that you, as monks and nuns, you don't accept things that are made especially for you. So the Sishyas go and collect that from this Shravika. And again, I will give you the details of that particular incident as well. And then they bring that oil back, and Bhagwan Mahavir uses it and he gets well. Goshalak, however, who has received the power of his own Tejolesha, that mood went round, did a pradikshana, rather than entering Bhagwan Mahavir's body, it actually went round Bhagwan Mahavir and entered his body directly. A few days after that, Goshalak immediately suffered the consequences of that, and he started burning from inside, and he did not have long to live. But during this period, he realizes his mistake, and Goshalak is very repentant about what he has done. So he has insulted his guru, somebody who he has learned from. He has proposed himself as a Tirthankar. He has been extremely rude to Bhagwan Mahavir. He has set out a very different, wrongful path, and promoted a religion which was completely falsehood. And he is very repentant about this. So towards the end of his life, in his repentance, he calls his Sishyas and tell them that I have done wrong, and when I die, what I want you to do is take my body and tie it with the legs to the back of a donkey, and make the donkey walk around the main streets of this city. And as the donkey is dragging my dead body everywhere on the streets, tell people as to who I was, and tell them to insult my body with all kinds of things because I was wrong. And in his repentance, he is trying to undo the harm that he has done by proposing a particular path which was wrong and which was wrongful. And the narrative goes that because of his repentance, in his next life, he's actually born in a Devlok. But the effects of his particular, the sins that he committed, the path that he'd acquired, will trouble him for many, many, many lives afterwards. And there is a long description, I think, in 360 Shalaka Purush Charitra as to how long he will suffer from. And just reading that particular part of his life tells us that how nature punishes some of these kinds of terrible acts that one can, in pride and in gross ignorance, actually, without thinking, conduct. And Goshalak had done that, and the description of how long he will suffer is actually extremely frightening. So we will talk about that as well. So that is the part of Goshalak. Sadal Putra was a follower of Mankli Putra Goshalak. Now once a Dev, and I think Sadal Putra, I've written Sadal Putra at the top because I think that is how it is written in Prakrit or in the text. But in the rest of the text in Gujarati, it's called Sadal Putra. Sadal Putra, as a follower of Goshalak, was very fortunate that once a Dev comes to him floating up in the sky, addresses him and tells him, that, O Devanupriye. Devanupriye means those who is liked by devs. So that is a term of respect to a person. That, hey Devanupriye, that tomorrow I'll read this part in Gujarati because it describes a lot. And then the text here summarizes it in some words. Ahi kale maha mahan utpan gnana darshana dhar, meaning maha mahan means a great man. Utpan gnan darshan dhar, somebody who has exposed his absolute power of Gnan and Darshan. Gnan, Utpanna Gnan Darshan Dhar, Atit Vartman and Bhavishya Jankar. Somebody who knows the past, present, and the future. Arihant, meaning somebody who has conquered all his inner enemies. Arihant. Jin, meaning Jineshwar. Kevali, meaning all-knowing. Sarvagna, again meaning all-knowing. Sarvadarshi, meaning somebody who sees everything that is happening in the universe. Trailokya Pujit, somebody who is worshipped by everybody in the three loks, meaning Devlok, Manushyalok, or Madhyalok and Patal Lok. Trailokya Pujit, Dev, Manusya ne Asuro ne Archniya. Somebody who is worshipped by devs, asurs, and men and women, obviously. Vandaniya tatha tathya karmothi yukt eva ek purush avnar છે. So he says that tomorrow there is such a person who is going to come, and when he comes, to please you go and bow down to him. Ane eshniya tatha prasuk asan. So when you go to him, offer him a place to stay, something that he can use. Pan, khadim, swadim. So give him food and very good all kinds of foods. Peet, falak, syaya tatha. Syaya means somewhere to sleep. Tatha santhara dwara temne nimantran karje. So go to him, pay your respects, and offer him all these things. When this day, he repeats this particular message 3 times and then flies away. Now, Sadalputra listens to this, and in his mind, he thinks that my guru, my dharmacharya, dharmopadeshak, somebody who has taught me his path, Manthli Putra Goshalak, and he respects him as Mahamaha. He also respects him as Jin Kevli, because Goshalak has been proposing that he is Kevli, meaning he knows everything. And basically, he was using the power of the knowledge of his predictive sciences to propagate this myth that he knew everything. He was just using advanced Jyotish, and he was skillful at that. He was using Nimit Sastra, through which one can predict to a certain extent, but there wasn't anybody to challenge him further, and he proposed to simple people that he was all-knowing. He had Keval Gnan. Kevali Sarogna Chete Avnarche. So Sudal Putra believes that his guru, Goshalak, is coming. And he says to himself that I will go and bow down to him and I will follow him. I will invite him for this. So Sadal Putra thinks that his guru is coming, and he would go and greet him and invite him to grace his abode and take food, etc. from him. Next day, Bhagwan Mahavir actually, sorry, I got a spelling mistake there, comes to the park, Udyan, it's called. It's called Sastrabra, something like that. The words are a bit faint here in this text. It's a park or a field outside the city, or leisure park. And Bhagwan Mahavir comes to that place. And because Sadal Putra thinks that it's Bhagwan Mahavir who thinks that his guru, Sadal Putra, has come, he goes to listen to that person. And before people went to such places, and it's something for us to understand and learn, he's been told, or he hears the news that a great person has come. He believes that it is his guru who has come, and he takes a wash, or he takes a bath, shower, whatever, wears good, clean clothes. He decks himself with the respective alankar meaning the jewelries that they used to wear. He goes with a lot of other people because he himself is an important person. He's quite wealthy. He goes with his friends and other people. Manushya Sang. સાથે તેમના દર્શને ગયો. So he goes with a retinue of people because he was an important person, and he goes there because he is going to meet somebody who is he respects very much, believing that he's going to meet Koshalak. When he goes there, he goes round Bhagwan Mahavir's in the top Parshada, where all the human beings and devs and devis, Shravaks, Shravikas, and Sadhu Bhagwans sit at the top part, and he goes around there, Tran Pradakshina. He bows down to him and sits down. Bhagwan Mahavir especially addresses him and tells him that a dev came to you last night, and he told you that a great person who is Jain Kevali is going to come today, and you listen to that. But what that Dev was telling you was not about Mankliputra Goshalak. So Bhagwan Mahavir, obviously, in his Keval Gnan, he is clearly aware of everything, and tells him that the Dev was not referring to Mankliputra Goshalak, that you actually believed that he was referring to that. And as Sadalputra listens to this, and he begins to think that I have come here, I have not spoken anything. Bhagwan Mahavir is telling me absolutely clearly what happened yesterday and what that Dev particularly said to me. And he has described the words that the Dev used to describe to me who that person was. Therefore, Bhagwan Mahavir is obviously the Mahan, Jin Kevali Tatha Karmathi Mukt, somebody who is free from all karmas. તો આમને વંદન અને નિમંત્રણ કરવામાં જ સારું શ્રેય છે. તો નિમંત્રણ કરવામાં જ મારું શ્રેય છે. So I need to bow down to him and I need to invite him as the Dev suggested, because he is exhibiting all the things that Dev described. He thinks that, and he bows down to Bhagwan Mahavir again and tells him that I've got 500 shops outside Polaspur, and please go there and I'm giving you the permission to go and get anything that you need. And आपने जो काई पिठ फलक वगैरह जोईता होए, if you need anything that is useful for you in your sadhana, please make use of my facilities and take whatever you need. Bhagwan Mahavir accepts that invitation and he goes. And then this, in many ways, is an exception, because after Bhagwan Mahavir's Keval Gnan, this is probably the only reference that I have sort of read about was Bhagwan Mahavir does not tell him anything else, but just accepts his particular invitation to go and get something, and he goes, and આ વાત સ્વીકારીને ભગવાને જોઈતા પીઠ ફલક તથા એની દુકાનોમાંથી આણી ત્યાં સુખે સુખે રહેવા લાગ્યા. So Bhagwan then stays in that place for some days. And once Sadalputra, let me again read this in Gujarati, and this is the part that I said I will have to learn a bit more about and then share with you next week and at the next class. એકવાર આજીઓ કો પાસક સદાલ પુત્ર પવનથી સુકાયેલા કાચા વાસણોને ઘરમાંથી બહાર કાઢીને તડકામાં સુકવતો હતો તે વખતે ત્યાં આવી ચડેલા શ્રવણ ભગવાન મહાવીરે તેને કહ્યું. So Sadal Putra has taken out his not yet ready pottery, meaning ghada, vasano, things that he has made, out of the house onto the sun to let them dry in the sun. And just then Bhagwan Mahavir comes along to that path and stops and asks Sadalputra, "Hey Sadalputra, આ ભાજન કેવી રીતે બન્યું છે? So how did you actually make these particular things that you made?" So he was a potter, so he has made all these different utensils, pots. Sadalputre જવાબ આપ્યો, "હે ભગવાન, પહેલા એ માટી રૂપે હતું. So previously it was just clay. તે માટીને પાણીથી પલાળવામાં આવી. So I wet it with water. Then I added some rock, meaning ash, to it. Then I added some chana, meaning cow dung. છાણાનો ગોર મેળવવામાં આવ્યા હતા. So I mixed all these three. I didn't know actually they added ash and chan to that. Maybe in those times, I don't know whether they do that these days, but maybe they still do. છાણાનો ગોર મેળવવામાં આવ્યા હતા. પછી તેને ચાક ઉપર ચડાવવામાં આવી ત્યારે આ વાસણ બન્યું. Then I put it on the potter's wheel and created this particular utensil. તે સાંભળીને ભગવાન મહાવીરે કહ્યું, "હે સદાલ પુત્ર, આ વાસણો બને છે તે ઉત્થાન બલ વીર્યથી બને છે કે તે વિના બને છે?" Meaning, this particular utensils, are they created with utthan, bal and a virya? Virya means strength, bal means power. Sorry, bal means power and virya probably means, virya thing means power and bal means strength. And utthan, I'm not sure. So Bhagwan asks him, કે તે ઉત્થાન બલ અને વીર્યથી બને છે કે તે વિના બને છે? તો સદાલપુત્ર જવાબે, "ભગવાન, ઉત્થાન બલ વીર્ય સિવાય બને છે. That happens just without any effort." I think that's what it means, and this is referring to that particular teachings of Koshalak, Mangliputra Goshalak. And in response to Bhagwan Mahavir's question, he says that this happens spontaneously. It happens, I think that's what it means. ઉત્થાન બલ વીર્ય સિવાય બને છે કારણ કે બધા ભાવો નિયત છે. Meaning that this is something that is bound to happen and it is predetermined. So it will happen without any particular effort. So it has happened without ઉત્થાન બલ and virya. ભગવાને ફરી સદાલ પુત્રને કહ્યું કે કોઈ માણસ આ કાચામાંથી પાકા થયેલા વાસણને ઉપાડી જાય, ફેંકી દે કે ફોડી નાખે, અથવા કોઈ તારી આ અગ્નિ મિત્રા સ્ત્રી સાથે ભોગો ભોગવે તો તું તેને શિક્ષા કરે કે નહીં? So Bhagwan Mahavir asks him that if somebody lifts up this ready-made, this utensils that you made and they are ready and dry for selling, they steal them or they lift or pick them up and throw them on the ground and break them, or somebody comes and makes love to your wife who is here, Mitra, then would you punish those people who have destroyed your property or abused your wife? Sadalputra responds, of course, I would catch that person or those persons, I would tie them up and I would kill them because they have destroyed my property and they have abused my wife. And Bhagwan then asks him, Sadalputra, જો ઉત્થાન બલ વીર્ય પરાક્રમ નથી અને બધા ભાવો નિયત જ છે, meaning everything happens because it is all predetermined, તો કોઈ વાસણને ચોરતું નથી. So if everything just happens because it's meant to happen, then nobody has actually stolen that because that was what was meant to happen. ફોડતું નથી, nobody has stolen it, nobody has broken it, and nobody has actually made love to your wife, nobody else. Then why would you kill that person or would you tie them up? Because in your belief, everything is niyat, meaning it is just meant to happen. માટે ઉત્થાન વગેરે નથી એમ તારું કહેવું ખોટું છે. So that means your statement that everything just happens spontaneously. So again, I mean, those of you who attend the Wednesday classes, we are discussing different aspects. In that particular Munisuvrat Swami Stavan, this particular viewpoint is not actually discussed, but this is one particular nai that explains certain things from a very narrow point of view and misses the whole point. So it is a false statement because there is something that is used without context and applied to everything. And obviously, as we've said, that every statement needs to be qualified with from what particular viewpoint. So here there is a reference to Goshalak's particular viewpoint, who he then applies it to everything else. But we will discuss this in greater detail when we come back after the break. Now, Bhagwan Mahavir explains this or uses this example to explain to Sadalputra where he's missing the point and what is wrong with the teachings of Goshalak and what Sadalputra has actually accepted as the truth, and he shows him the fallacy of his belief and where it is wrong. ભગવાનની યુક્તિ સાંભળીને સદાલપુત્ર સંબુદ્ધ થયો. So he actually understands the truth અને તેણે તેમની પાસે તેમનો ધર્મ સાંભળવાની ઈચ્છા કરી. So then he realizes that he was on the wrong path, and then he expresses the desire to listen to Bhagwan Mahavir's explanation and what he should be following. So Sadalputra is now ready to abandon his false beliefs and accept the true belief. And Bhagwan Mahavir at the first meeting did not actually teach him anything like that. He just explained to him what had happened the previous night. And then when Sadalputra invited him to take some things from his shops that may be of use to Bhagwan Mahavir, he actually obliges, though obviously there was no, people don't go with that intention. Bhagwan Mahavir's whole aim was to fulfill this particular destiny for Sadalputra at the right time. And the right time comes when Bhagwan Mahavir just passes by there and meets Sadalputra, and this exchange happens. And Sadalputra is now ready to accept the true path. And then the narrative goes forward as to what Sadalputra then hears from Bhagwan Mahavir, accepts the vows, and how his wife follows. And we will follow the rest of the story after the Christmas break when we meet again. As you all know, today is the last class for this year. Kavit Darshana, do we know when we are resuming the classes?
We are not exactly sure, but I think Sandipbhai will email and let people know.
Yeah, okay. All right, so I'll end here now. This is part 1 of Sadal Putra. Any quick question, but very quickly, Shelina, what you raised yesterday and I answered. So Shelina's question was, the topic yesterday in the Uttradhayan Sutra class was Pap Shramaniya, that particular chapter. Those of you who don't attend the Monday classes, just very briefly, it talks about the different faults that a monk or a nun can develop after taking Diksha if they are not careful and they're not following the path, as a result of laziness, as a result of being very comfortable and not having the full desire. They may have taken Diksha for with great vairagya, but the with great detachment, but then are not as diligent and are not as particular in following the rules properly. And as a result of that, they develop various different faults. And this particular chapter of Uttradhayan Sutra, the 17th chapter, describes those particular faults. And Shelina's question was, after listening to that Bhagwan Mahavir's particular story in the third life as Marichi, when he leaves the Diksha that he had taken from Bhagwan Rusukdev because he felt unable to follow the very strict vows, and he takes the liberties and follows a particular path that he labeled as Tridandi, or is labeled as Tridandi. And Shelina's question was, that was his conduct in that moment also what one would describe as Pap Shramaniya? And my response was that to a certain extent one could say that, but in other aspects, that particular incident, as long as Marichi accepted the fact that his path was inferior, he announced that to everybody who came to follow him, that look, I am different, I am inferior, I'm not following the correct path, and if you want to progress further spiritually, you need to follow the path that has been laid down by Bhagwan Rusukdev and follow him, not me. And he kept on maintaining that until one day he thought that I must have a Sishya as well. And he tried to, he explained to this particular Sishya, who is again questioning him and saying him that if the true path is that, is your path not true? And then Marichi says, yeah, and that is true, and my path is true as well. And he makes that false statement, which I said was a much greater fall. So, in fact, what the 7th chapter and what I wanted to clarify, Shelina, and I just want to make sure that the 17th chapter is not actually describing, the 17th Adhyayan of Uttradhayan Sutra, Pap Shramaniya, is not actually describing that level of deviation from the truth in that respect. So what it is, this particular level of deviation is actually completely making a false statement about the path itself. The reference in the 17th Adhyayan, there are parts of it which are talking about you making a statement without thinking and sort of twisting words, and there is a particular reference to it, but a lot of it is about conduct. So that particular aspect, I think I didn't particularly emphasize, and if you are meeting sometime and sitting down, just ask me, and I will go through that particular verse that describes that part, which to an extent refers to what we are talking about, but it's not actually describing that level of pap. So pap Sramaniya is more about the conduct, and the term pap is used in different aspects, but it can also be used with this. So to an extent, you are extrapolating something which is not in greater detail, at least in the text that we are referring to. But if you listen to some other Sadhu Bhagwans, they may expand this much greater. So if there are commentaries on Uttradhyan Sutra, which are much more detailed than this, then you may have some aspects of reference that we're talking about. Okay, I'll end here now.
Thank
I
you.
think we passed, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention because I think we need to be clear. Okay. It's nearly 10 past, 11 past 9. If I've said anything that is against the teachings of Jain Dharma, our Guru Bhagwans, and our religion, or Shankar Paramatmas, I ask for forgiveness. Thank you, Kavit and Darshana, for all the help that you've given us as part of the Zoom team, and obviously everybody else in the Zoom team. And have a good break, everybody. We'll see you after the Christmas break. Keep well. Sarvamangala Mangalyam Surakalyan Karanam Pradhanam Suradharvanam Jainam Jyoti Sasanam. Thank you. Thank you, Darshana, Kavit.